Hi, Misha here, and I did not expect to be talking about this rifle again. Put out a video in March, pretty much saying I was satisfied with my M16A4 clone, and I was. I've had this rifle since 2015, when we first did a video on it in October of that year for you. This is based on a Colt AR15A4 semi-automatic rifle, and over the years I've updated it to make it into maybe not an exact, but pretty good US Marine Corps A4. Specifically the MWS version. But so yeah, back in the spring I thought I was done. But then a couple of components came in that I just couldn't say no to. So here we are again. But first, let's revisit some range footage, because too often people talk about how great a gun is, but don't actually shoot it. And this one has been fired a lot. And it has been 100% reliable as best we can remember. Certainly don't remember any major failures or issues. And it's frankly just a lot of fun. And Jay says it's as accurate as any military issue rifle can be expected to be. So, yeah, works well. But here's a bit of proof, just because. AR15A4. So see, Colt AR15A4. And this model was announced in 2014 by Colt, although it really didn't become available until 2015. And a lot of us were excited because this was the first military style rifle Colt had done since the 1980s. Really the SP1 and some of the early A2 styles. That's why when we wanted to do an A2 clone, we kind of had to do just that, kind of build one up. I put this one on and Colt lower just because, but it's a period correct 80s upper. Now the A2 came about between 1982 and 1985, and it was kind of driven by the Marine Corps. In 1977, they started trying to standardize amongst NATO, so in case there was ever war in Europe, they would use a certain standard round, maybe even standard magazine. I think they kind of given up hope on a standard rifle, but if they could at least standardize components, that would be helpful. And they settled on the Belgian-designed 62 grain projectile, modifying it slightly, becoming the M855. And thus it needed a new 1-in-7 twist rate. So in 1982, Colt replaced the original 1-in-12 with the 1-in-7. And they made several changes to the design while they were at it. They went to a new flash hider that had a closed bottom, which kind of acted as a compensator. They went to a heavier profile barrel, even though it's lighter under the handguard still. They kept it light under the handguards, so I could still use the grenade launcher, but they strengthened the front, so if people tried to use it as a pry bar with their bayonet, they wouldn't bend the barrel as likely. They also modified the front sight. They took the round handguards from the XM177 Car 15 series and extended them for the rifle length gas. What's nice about this style of handguard, they're no longer right and left sensitive. The halves are interchangeable. The delta ring, which had been standard on the carbine for a while, became standard for the rifle. And they went to this fixed carry handle with a new windage and elevation adjustable rear sight, which again was kind of spurred on by the Marines because they loved themselves some accuracy in target shooting. Also, the original M16A1 had a safe semi-full auto selector, while the A2 had safe semi 3-round burst. On top of that, the A2 had a reinforced lower in the front and the rear, and went to a new style of pistol grip with the finger rest, and finally went to a 5/8 inch longer buttstock with easier to use trapdoor latch and new stippling, and so on and so forth. Flipping him over, you can see the forward assist from the A1 still there, but it went to a new round pattern, and we went to a brass deflector. We also went to a port door with more of a ledge to make it easier to use. And they started putting a tick mark on the right side of the selector, but full ambi would have to wait. The 30-round mag became the standard by this time, although it had been in use since 1968, and in 1986 a new pattern of bayonet, the M9, first started to show up. It only partially replaces the M7, the traditional knife, and it can be used as a utility knife, as a wire cutter, has the sharpening stone on the scabbard. And yes, it is fully and admittedly a copy and refinement of the Soviet AKM bayonet, which you see here can also be used as a wire cutter. This is a Bulgarian one, but you can find these dating back to the 1960s. And the M9 is only slightly longer than the M7, but it's quite a bit heavier because of what it is. But the lugs didn't change in both would see service. It would took some time to, re-equip from the older M16A1s and some AR15s. The process was underway by the time of the Gulf War, but some units would not receive the new M16A2 until 1991, 1992. And these would be issued throughout all of the armed forces and would be the standard, but really for a pretty brief time. In 1994, the M4 carbine was adopted, and while initially it was meant to be deployed as a, carbine, as we know today, it became the de facto standard very soon. So M16A2 production at Colt and FN would already be kind of ramping down in the mid-late 90s. Although some are still in inventory today, it's very much no longer the standard. While most branches would go to the M4, M4A1, the Marine Corps was a bit of a holdout. They have been the primary users of the M16A4. Just as an aside, the A3, the one in between, was the same as the A2, but instead of having the 3-round burst, it had full auto as the third option. And it was used primarily by the US Navy and for export. Anywho, in 1996, Colt began work on this, and already by the following year, they started testing. And by the following year of that, 1998, the Marine Corps started looking at it and adopted it to be its new service rifle. In the beginning, the difference between A2 and A4 was extremely simple. Removable carry handle. The A2 has a fixed carry handle. The A4 came with a removable one with the Picatinny rail. Yes, I know, M1913. I did hear your comments on the Small Arms Solutions channel, but here's the thing. With my historical background, anytime I say the phrase 1913, I'm automatically thinking pre-World War I. It's a mental thing. So, Picatinny rail it is. Other features would not come later until the handguards and whatnot. The barrel is the same. 20 inch, heavy in the front, thin under the handguards. Rifle system, They did elevate the front sight slightly to work with the rear. Same buttstock, same pistol grip, and initially the same selector, although the ambi one would appear. And these were starting to see service by 2001, 2002, so the early days of the War on Terror. And in that year, the Marine Corps did a test with their new M16A4 and concluded that it had 1/3 as many stoppages as the M4, M4A1. As in, let's say an M4 would have 100 stoppages. This would only have 33. Further testing in 2005 and 2006 would show that the M16A4 had a mean failure rate of 1 round in 5,000. So this really is the matured AR15, delivering accuracy, reliability, durability, and it still has the same rifle gas system, rifle length barrel, fixed buttstock of the original Armorlight design and Colt 601. So as we get into the War on Terror, the Army is really pulling its M16A2s, at least out of frontline service, and replacing them with M4s and later M4A1s. But the Marines went a different path, and now we kind of come to my clone here in the two major changes I have made. AR15A4. Good old AR strong. So I've had this pouch on, which I picked up at a surplus store. Same with the sling for a while. The Colt comes with the ambi selector, and it basically comes in one of the 3 configurations that are authorized. The M16A4 has been accepted as either with carry handle and the plastic handguard, carry handle and the Knight's Armament RAS, which the military calls the ARS, Adaptive Rail System Handguard, or the final in the standard today configuration, or at least the last one that was standard, with the Picatinny rail, a backup iron sight, typically a Maytech, and the Knight's rail. So one of the first things I did when I started changing my A4, I put a Knight's M5 RAS on it, which came with the Knight's foregrip, which is correct. I also put a Harris bipod because it's one of the bipods you can use, and a Maytech rear sight, which is one of the rear sights you can use. And for a laser designator, I originally had this on. It's a Chinese thing with laser and light. And it even came with pressure switches. And it's meant to look like the AN-PEQ-2. And it was okay. But then this came along, and I couldn't resist. By the way, stuck the M7 band on because why not? Bayonets are neat. This is Insight AN, Army Navy, PEQ-2 upgrade or update model, surplus. And this is an infrared laser designator. It has 2 laser nodes, I guess you would say. One operates as an actual designator, and the other is more of an infrared flashlight. They're independently adjustable, and you can scale up or down the radius of the beam. This system actually replaced the older PAQ4 from the 1990s, and the PEQ2, PEQ2 was in use by at least 2001, and actually was first kind of adapted to work on M16A2s before the A4 MWS modular weapons system rail setup was available. So it's been in service for a long time. It was also issued as part of the M4's SOP mod kit and became pretty standard with the Marines too. Not useful to a civilian, really, unless you have night vision. And that's kind of how I ended up with this set here. Well, I thought it would be neat to have one of these. They're expensive and not very useful for me, being blind. Not useful for a lot of people unless you have night vision, but especially not for me. But this one was basically gifted to me. It came as a free bonus with a pretty nice night vision set, and I sold the night vision set for what I had in it, which ended up giving me this PEQ2 for free. Here is the standard switch, and I did get the blue ones with it as well. The difference is with the black one in, it can do low power or high power. With the blue one, which became available with the update, it's only limited to low power. By the way, this is powered by 2 AA batteries, because why not? It also has a attachable pressure pad if you want to wire it up. I do have the black pressure pad too. I just couldn't lay hands on it when I was recording this. So it really completes the handguard look of this thing. I mean, this is honestly probably more useful for a civilian because it has a visible laser and a flashlight. Now, Insight does, or at least did, make versions of this for civilians with visible lasers too. A note with the black: these are not illegal to own. They're just not allowed for purchase, buying, selling. But they're perfectly fine to have, just not to sell. So I better keep it, right? And along with the bipod and the grip, this is pretty much as good as it's going to get for a US Marine Corps A4 clone. As Jay pointed out, a lot of times they like to push these a little further forward. I just have this back because that's just the rail section I have here. This is how it fits well. So yeah, plus you can reach it from there. I know a lot of people would put the grip in the rear too, but that kind of gets into, well, it's my gun, and that's just kind of how I like it. I also put on the kind of side sling mount here, setting it up the way I wanted. So the second change that I made, and this one was quite recent. Around the turn of the millennium, 20 or so years ago, iron sights started to fall out of favor, and modern optics came in, be they magnified, red dot, holographic, what have you. And the M16A4 is no exception. When you saw this in the shooting videos and before, I had this on. This is a Chinese knockoff of a Trijicon ACOG, Advanced Combat Optic. Sight. This one does have the fiber optic. I don't believe it had tritium, but I could be wrong on that. And it was 4 power. And not a bad thing to have it as a representative piece on my gun, because let's be honest, a blind guy doesn't have much use for an optic, and by much I mean none. However, I am far from the only one to shoot my rifles. I mean, Jay does, and a few others do as well. I always wanted to put a genuine Trijicon ACOG on, but I was not ever going to pay close to full price until this one came along. And this is kind of thanks to a different customer. It came in lightly used as part of a package deal, to the point I'm in it just a couple of $100 really, and that I can justify with this gun. So the ACOG started off, the first model was the TA-01, first released in 1987, and it found success with the military in their SOP mod kits early on. But then the Marine Corps, after using a few of these, did a lot of testing in 2005 and really liked the accuracy results, and so would end up purchasing over 115,000, enough to equip all of their M16 and M4s in service to make it a standard. And of course the Army did as well. Now the version that they've been receiving for over the past 10-15 years is the TA-31 RCO, Rifle Combat Optic. This is a 4x32 dual illumination. It has the fiber optics, it has the tritium. I believe all the ACOGs pretty much have the tritium, but not all models have the fiber optics. They do make them anywhere from 1.5 all the way up to 6 power fixed magnification, but the military, at least the US military, seems very happy with the 4 power. And they go with the red chevron reticle, although ACOG also offers them in green. And they even try to make them specific for a 20-inch or a 14-inch barrel, 223 of course, and other versions. You guys probably know more about these than I do, because again, not really my field of study. But this finally became available, and it really does complete the clone. The U.S. Army designates this as the M16A4 RCO, and the Marines designate it as the AN/PVQ-31 RCO. And so it's been used pretty much throughout all of the military. It is the quintessential kind of long-range sight. Now this exact model is the TA-31F. That's what the guy had. And on paper it looks identical to the TA-31 RCO that the military tends to purchase. After reading a bit, it seems like the only definitive difference is that the RCO model has horizontal chevron markings inside that can allow the rifle user to call in an indirect strike on whatever they're targeting. You know, for example, a mortar hit. Probably, I don't think most shooters, even the, big time guys like Military Arms Channel, I don't think they have a fire team they can call in. If they do, I really wouldn't want to fuck with them. So that seems to be the only difference. Otherwise, it's the same. Power has the fiber optics, the tritium. A couple of places on ARFCOM and others said that the F model doesn't have the caps wired to the body, but this one does. They also said it doesn't come with the little cover, or where did I put that? Damn it. This thing. Little cover case, but it did. The guy shipped it to me with all the hard case and everything. Now it's possible he added it. I don't know. Again, not an expert on these things. These are very much still in use by the Marine Corps and Army. Again, thousands upon thousands have seen use. This equipment I've added is meant for durability. For example, the tritium in here is guaranteed to last 10 to 15 years and can last up to 20 in some instances. It's good to operate. It's considered waterproof down to at least 11 meters. And anyone who's owned one of these Trijicons knows just how bulletproof they are, almost literally. And their warranty is very comprehensive. Likewise, the Insight PEC 2 is rated to go down to 20 meters. It uses very common batteries and is built tough and to last. The Knights Armament handguard and foregrip are likewise tough. Pretty simple, but tough. The Harris bipod's been used by countless militaries over the years. And again, even the soft gear, the sling and the pouch, I picked up from a surplus store, meaning they were, by true definition, surplus parts. As far as the Colt AR15A4, there wasn't much I had to do. This ambi selector is what at least some of these, the majority, come with, and it is a military part. These do come with a C-marked M16 bolt carrier, at least when I bought this one they did. They have properly proofed barrels. And the small parts like the hammer have the proper military proof markings. And that's what I've gone for here, is a true Marine Corps tough M16A4. They will use these extensively in Iraq and Afghanistan. The pros are pretty obvious. Very low felt recoil. Very good accuracy thanks to the barrel and solid mounting choices. Utter reliability, durability. AR-15 rifles have always been more reliable than carbines, and always probably will be. That's not to say carbines aren't reliable, but you see what I'm saying. Cons, pretty obvious there too. This is a heavy rifle. Kitted out like this, it's over 9 pounds. Probably 10 with the Trijicon. It's also 40 inches long with the standard A2 buttstock. And, because I think it's kind of funny, some comments say that these Knights Armament panels are slippery in certain environments because of sweat, rain, and it is. They're not rubber, they're hard plastic, and the texturing is pretty minimal. That's not really my problem with them. I just don't like how they lock on. They can only lock in at the front or the back, and you have to slide them fully forward or off. They're just not as convenient as certain things, more modern styles of panels, in my opinion. But the other side of that is, if you install a full set, you essentially have a true handguard. It completely covers the rails, but still leaves little holes for ventilation for your barrel. So am I done now with this build? I think so. I can't think of what else. But if anyone has any suggestions, I showed this to Jay and his things were, it looks like an A4. Again, maybe move the foregrip and the designator in different positions, but I like them here, so. Otherwise, I can't think of what else to really do. But it might seem odd for me to put these genuine and rather pricey parts on And I would agree, but I have my reasons. So why don't we close out with those? I think the reason for keeping the PEC 2 is pretty obvious, that I got into it for nothing. Even though I can't use the device, it is kind of key to an A4. In addition, well, this is a neat device for the money. Has some neat options. It has a lot of the same problems that a lot of the Chinese or other knockoff stuff does. The metal these are made from tends to be soft, especially the screws. Notice how this cap here is tight, but this one here just kind of spins. Nothing happened there. I didn't even try to hit it with the screwdriver or if it get, hit or anything. It just came loose after shooting. And if you try to torque on it or something, typically you end up just stripping the screw or breaking the head off. And that's kind of just endemic of the quality of this stuff. It has features, but then it doesn't seem to have much durability, at least compared to the original items. Not to say don't have it, but it definitely stuck out as not being true military issue. What do I do if I put the laser on when I'm doing that? Is there a laser in your face? Don't worry, it's through your computer screen. It can't hurt you. So it's neat, but yeah, when this came along, of course I was going to do it. It really does look neat. And it's a legitimate surplus part. So after that came into my hands around, May. Having a Chinese Optic seemed a little weird. But I wasn't going to pay full price, over $1,000 for one of these new. At the same time, again, I wasn't just super happy with the Chinese. This is kind of loose a bit. Of course, you can glue it back down. It's just hot glue. Another odd thing, the slots for the screws are very thin. Very, very, very thin. On the real one, they're much thicker. And one of these screws I always like to come loose on the gun. It's that same problem. And from what people have told me, it's not all that easy to use. The field of use even more restrictive than a real ACOG, and it's kind of I was happy with it enough, again, as a representative piece. But it was very clearly not a Trijicon, even to me. So again, when I was able to pick this one up as part of a package deal, and it was so close to being exactly what the military uses, I just couldn't say no for that kind of money. So I didn't. And like I said, with everything else being genuine on this, it just, having this as a fake didn't work. But the nice thing is, I've been working on this gun since 2015, so the cost has been spread out over 5 years. And this was kind of the idea I had when Colt first announced the AR15A4. If you look in our past videos, I did have the FN Collector Series guns, and I really like them, but there's just no substitute for a genuine Colt. Even though FN has made the A4, Colt is the one that can make it with as many military parts as it wants, whereas FN's use of the TDP is restricted by law. The A4 was never standard in the other branches, only being purchased in limited numbers at best, but it was the standard in the Marine Corps for a long time. To kind of address the length issue, in 2014 they did authorize the use of putting on collapsing buttstocks. And of course they've continued to upgrade and update the kits issued with these. It's worth pointing out that while the TA31RCO is the standard, Many other Trijicons, heck, even many other optics have been used, some of them purchased on the unit level or even private purchase by the individual soldiers, which is generally speaking allowed if it meets the requirements. Kind of the same thing goes for things like slings and foregrips. I know grip pods are standard now. Well, towards the end of 2015, the M16A4 in the U.S. Marine Corps started to officially be replaced by the M4, M4A1. Now, it's not to say the Marines didn't have M4s before this, they did. But the standard issue long arm was the M16, but as we rolled into 2016, the M4 became more and more used, and the A4 was kind of cycled out. That said, some are still issued to specialists who might need a rifle with the better range accuracy, and many more are still in inventory, still in storage, just in case they are needed. But as 2020 ends, the M4 has finally dominated the M16, even in the Marine Corps. There have been a few export customers, but for the most part, this was a Marine special. So, what do you think of my clone? I never really intended for it to get this evolved, this advanced, but I'm happy it did. And again, on top of just being a fun clone, it's actually a lot of fun to shoot too. If you have suggestions, feel free to make them, but as far as purchasing equipment for it, I'm pretty well solid. I'm good. But yeah, feel free to let me know what you think, and feel free to check out some of our other AR15 videos. If you have any questions or comments, please post them, and as always, if you could, like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to help support the channel, please check out the link to our Patreon page. This is Misha, and we'll catch you very soon next time.